I've never heard of this term before until I stumbled upon this page on Wikipedia recently. And I think it's a term that only exists in Cantonese. And apparently, I grew up in one. And I'm also currently living in a place like this. And what I'm talking about is birthday cake development. So, what is a birthday cake development, you ask? Well, what does a birthday cake look like? It's like an onion, right? What do I mean by that? I mean, onions have layers, and cakes also have layers. So, a birthday cake development has layers, and I'm not talking about metaphorical layers. I'm talking about literal, actual layers. If you look at this complex, neighborhood complex where I live, it has a train depot on the ground floor, then some parking lots, and a subway station above it, or MTR as we call it here. And then there's a mall, and another mall, and a garden level. And then to top off the multi-layer cake are, of course, the candles, which are these mid to high-rise residential buildings. Actually, the mid-rises are mid-rises because when they were built in the 80s, Kai Tak Airport was still running. And so because of the proximity to the airport, about half of the buildings in this complex were close enough to the runway that they couldn't be taller than 12 stories. Anyway, in total, there are about 5,000 units total here, housing about 13,000 people, according to the 2016 census, all in an area of about 0.12 square kilometers. So that's a population density of about 100,000 people per square kilometer. That's pretty crazy, right? But here's the kicker. If you look at Hong Kong's overall population density, it's only about 6,600 per square kilometer, compared to New York City's 11,000 people per square kilometer. So how is that possible? Isn't Hong Kong supposed to be some kind of urban hellscape that it's at a scale far beyond where you can see anywhere else? Sure, I mean, if you only look at the developed areas in Hong Kong without just turning your head around and look at this. If you look at the satellite images of the two cities, you see the what I consider the upside of this kind of high density but clumpy development. With this kind of clumpy density, you have access to pretty much everything you need within 15 minutes of walking. And yes, that includes nature. Look at this. This lookout spot is about a 15-minute walk from my living room. And between this hiking trail and my living room, there is also a grocery store, a movie theater, a mall with like 270 stores, dozens of restaurants and bakeries, convenience stores, clinics, daycare/kindergarten, of course, a subway station, parks with plenty of play areas for kids, swimming pools, a library, and of course, a wet market. So you may say, of course Hong Kong has clumpy density because of its mountainous terrain. Sure, I mean that's a part of that, but the terrain alone doesn't explain the specific design of the subway station on top of a mall. I mean a subway station with a mall on top of it, and a garden on top of that, and then housing on top of everything. The building code explains it. According to Hong Kong's legislation's Chapter 123F, under Building and Planning Regulations, Part 2, Item 20. It took me a long time to find this actually. So basically, developers in Hong Kong can build up to 100% of the lot they own for the first 15 meters vertically. So that's the first 5 floors or so, provided that it's not for residential use. So people won't be living in apartments with no windows and so on. And then after the first 15 meters, if the developer wants to build housing, then they can only build on something like 60 to 80% of the entire area to ensure access to natural light and so on, depending on the size of the lot. So, although this kind of birthday cake development isn't explicitly prescribed by law, they kind of are in practice, given how this code is written. And together with the business model of the MTR to basically profit from renting, I guess, technically not buying, undeveloped land from the government, and then building a subway line to it, to the plot of land, and then also building tons of housing around the station and then selling them. The MTR, by the way, is the Hong Kong Transit Company. They actually makes about half of its profits from commercial and residential real estate. So in addition to having one of the highest fare box recovery ratios in the world, because of these kind of developments. So birthday cake developments is definitely one of their main go-tos when it comes to building things and selling them for a lot of money. By the way, the term birthday cake development is my own translation. The original term, which is just slang in Cantonese, I think, is 蛋糕樓, which actually means cake building, or literally egg paste multi-story structure, if you want to be very pedantic. Although we do mean cake when we say 蛋糕, we're usually referring to this kind of cake, which is mostly only eaten at birthdays here in Hong Kong and in most places, I reckon. As for this other kind of what you may also call cake, we call it something else. We call it sai bang, which means Western biscuit or pastry if you're American. I mean, I didn't mean biscuits like the kind of biscuit you get from Popeyes. So more like a cookie here, I think. See, my point is translation is tricky. I mean, I know this is not a video about linguistics, but my point is how word mapping. What I'm trying to say is word mapping often doesn't work across languages that are far apart, like Cantonese and English. Anyway, back to talking about urban planning. Are there any downsides to birthday cake developments? Sure. Although the main downsides that I've heard urban planners talked about is one that I actually don't agree with, which is that because these kind of developments elevates the residential zones above the ground level road network, it tends to segregate communities into these castle-like structures. I think personally that it's kind of just car brain bullshit, because you don't necessarily need roads to connect communities. You just have to connect them, with infrastructure, like skywalks. There's an argument that great separation between pedestrians and cars is bad for urbanism, because that somehow means pedestrians are conceding that precious space to cars. I mean, sure, but the skywalks here in Hong Kong, most of them are not the kind of solitary skywalks that goes across highways and not connected to anything else. And all it does is make pedestrians go up and down stairs just to cross the road. The skywalks here are part of the fabric that enables tens of thousands of residents to get to where they need to without even coming close to traffic or any road at the ground level. So yeah, if I'm walking at ground level, I wouldn't want to climb stairs just to cross the road. But if I'm already living in a birthday cake development, I don't want to have to go down another level just to cross the road. I mean, I guess that is the point of how people are discouraged to integrate into the larger community or the greater road network. But there's really not much at the ground level near where I live, and I definitely don't feel like I'm separated from my community. I mean, I get that ground level communities tend to look and feel livelier. I mean, I'm a sucker for this kind of urban aesthetics too. But I think a lot of this is just an artifact of the narrow sidewalk. On a macroscopic level, yes, I concede that birthday cake developments don't integrate well on the city scale. But if you look at the mountainous geography of Hong Kong, it doesn't really allow this kind of, the kind of organic growth pattern most other megacities have. And if you really have to put the blame on what causes this segregation in Hong Kong, then I think you should still put the blame on the car and not birthday cake developments, because even for Hong Kong, the city with the highest percentage of trips taken by public transit, there's this. I may be romanticizing Hong Kong a bit. Sure, Hong Kong has its problems, but when it comes to urban planning, I really think Hong Kong is by far the best in the world in terms of the cards it has been dealt, something like that. And I'm from Hong Kong, so I think it's fine for me to romanticize about it. I think it's like fantasizing about your own wife, right? I think that's fine. But anyway, just to end on the more positive note, relatively positive if you're an urbanist, that Hong Kong does have the highest percentage of public transit modal share in the world at 77%. Compared to the most urbanist city in the US, New York, that number is at 31%. And you can't really talk about Hong Kong's transit system without talking about the MTR. So I'll make another video to explain why I think Hong Kong's MTR is uniquely successful when it comes to designing its system, and not just like relatively better compared to other cities. I think it's kind of unique in a way. But until then, my name is Yun Yu. And everything you've seen in this video was shot within a 15-minute walk from my bedroom. And thank you for watching.